Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take source material, pull out the key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, we're diving into something pretty special, the world of Clair Obscur, Expedition 33.
Yeah, and we've got some really interesting review snippets here. They paint this picture of a very ambitious RPG. People are calling it a triumph of vision and execution, which is, high praise.
Okay, definitely sounds like something to unpack. So,
Yeah.
our mission today, figure out what makes this game feel like stepping into a living painting. And also, how does it manage to blend that gorgeous world with really deep gameplay? We want you to get why this odyssey is well worth embarking upon.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. You land on the docks of Lumiere, right? What's that initial feeling like? What jumps out?
Well, the first thing apparently is just that. It feels like a living painting. It's got this Belle Époque style, kind of grand. But it merges that with a pretty dark fantasy story. Reviewers are saying the atmosphere is just as important as the combat itself. And you see that in the vistas, the smooth animations, the music too, especially in the PS5, it seems. It's described as hauntingly beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And the core idea, the story premise, that sounds pretty unique too.
Oh, definitely. It's simple on the surface, but it's got layers. There's this entity, the paintress,
Right.
who every year erases people, specifically anyone older than a certain age, and that age keeps getting lower.
Wow.
Yeah, so it really taps into something quite profound, doesn't it? This sort of existential threat, the passage of time, loss. It makes the whole conflict feel really resonant, more than just, kill the big bad monster. Your investment feels kind of personal.
So you got this group trying to stop her. Gustave, the engineer, Mael, who's younger, Lune, the mage, Stal, the warrior. A classic RPG party setup in a way.
Sort of, yeah. And as they travel through these crumbling kind of Belle Époque streets and misty areas, you're constantly reminded that even though it looks charming, there's this deep sadness, this weight of mortality hanging over everything.
Okay, so the world and the story set a strong tone. But you mentioned combat earlier, and reviewers call it the crowning achievement. What's so special there? It looks turn-based at first glance.
It does, yeah. It looks familiar, like a standard turn-based RPG. But underneath that, there's this layer of real-time skill involved. It keeps every fight feeling, well, tense, and like you're discovering new tactics all the time. You're not just picking menu options passively.
Okay, so how does that work, that real-time part?
Well, every time you swing like a melee attack, you gain ability points. Think of it like your mana or energy.
Got it.
Then you spend those points on your ranged attacks or bigger skills. And there's even a free aim mechanic, almost like a shooter.
Really? In a turn-based system?
Yeah, and on top of that, you've got quick time events for some actions, and crucially, parrying. You need split-second timing for parries.
Ah, so defense isn't just passive either. You have choices.
Exactly. You can dodge, which is cool, but parrying, that gives you back ability points and a chance to strike back hard. It feels really rewarding. And then later, you unlock these things called gradient attacks and skills. The screen apparently just fills with these trails of light and color as you pull off combos. The key thing is, it never feels static. You're always thinking, build meter, use a skill now, try to dodge this, or maybe go for breaking their stance. It keeps you engaged.
Sounds intense.
Yeah.
And visually, you mentioned the PS5 earlier. How good does it actually look? Does it dazzle?
It really seems to. It's running on Unreal Engine 5, which is, pretty cutting edge. On PS5, you get a choice. Performance mode aims for a solid 60 frames per second, so it feels super smooth.
Okay.
Or there's quality mode that runs at 30 FPS, but you get fancier lighting, richer shadows. So it's a trade-off. Depends what you prefer.
And the details. Characters, environments.
Apparently incredible. They mention things like the lace on May-El's dress, the tiny gears on Gustave's mechanical arm. Really fine details.
Wow.
And the environments sound just as lively. Sunbeams through church windows, rain reflecting off cobblestones lit by gas lamps, that sort of thing. One review mentioned very rare frame drops when things get super busy on screen, but called it a tiny nitpick in a, quote, visually exquisite journey.
Sounds like it. And what about the sound? You mentioned the score, but the voice acting too. Does that add to it?
Hugely, it seems. The composer, Lorien Testart, provides the score with sweeping strings and piano bits that shift from calm to really intense hearts and hands moments.
Nice.
And the voice cast gets a lot of praise. They bring this warmth and authenticity. They mention Seal's gentle humor or another character, Renoir's gruffness. It sounds like the performances really help you connect with the characters, making you care more about their journey.
So the main quest is driving you towards the paintress. But is there room to just explore? Is the world rich outside that main path?
Oh yeah, definitely. The game seems pretty generous with side stuff. Hidden caves, abandoned artist studios, even these floating sky islands to find.
Cool.
And some of these optional places have tough puzzles or big bosses, really testing you on both the combat and like spell use.
And for players like me who enjoy a bit of customization, anything like that.
Yep, there are collectible outfits and hairstyles scattered around. Adds a bit of light fun, finding those between the heavier story beats.
Okay.
Though, one small critique that came up was occasional backtracking. Sometimes you might have to go through areas you've already cleared, especially like midway through the game. It can feel a little repetitive then.
Right, that can happen in RPGs. Now, going back to the tone,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds pretty dark, this idea of erasure and mortality.
Mm-hmm.
Does it ever lighten up? How does it balance that?
It seems to manage that balance surprisingly well. They mention a character who joins later, Monoko, who brings this really dry, witty humor. That apparently adds some much-needed relief in the darker moments. And you find things like journal entries or do quests specific to your companions. These flesh out their backstories, their hopes, their regrets. So by the end, you're not just fighting a concept, you're fighting for these people you've come to know.
That sounds really effective. Makes it more personal.
Exactly. It lifts it beyond just a monster hunt.
So the main journey sounds fantastic, really complete. But what about after? Does the game just end? Or is there more? Does this deep dive continue post-credits?
Oh, it absolutely continues. Finishing the main story unlocks a surprising amount of post-game content. Like stuff some studios might charge extra for in an expansion.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, there's an endless tower mode, 33 floors of escalating battles, perfect for testing out builds and really mastering the combat.
Classic challenge mode. Nice.
Yeah. And then there's something called the Flying Manor. This introduces new story bits, like epilogues focusing on your companions, shedding more light on what happens to them.
Oh, that's great. More character stuff.
Exactly. Plus, you've got new game, plus around challenge modifiers you can add, even hidden story details you might only catch on a second playthrough. It really encourages replaying and trying different things. Extends the life of this radiant gem, as one review put it.
Okay, so wrapping this up.
Yeah.
Clair Obscur. Expedition 33. Sounds like it pulls off something pretty special. A real blend of vision and actual execution. You've got this unique combat turn-based, but with real-time flair, amazing art, great music, and a story that's both whimsical and deeply moving.
Yeah, that sums it up well. There are maybe minor bumps, like a bit of backtracking or the occasional repetitive side area, but those seem like small things in the grand scheme of what sounds like a really remarkable RPG, one that sticks with you.
So whether you're already a fan of turn-based games or just drawn in by that incredible art style, it really does sound like Expedition 33 is an adventure worth taking.
And that actually brings up an interesting final thought for you, the listener. You know, in a world full of massive open-world games, what does it really mean when a game gets called a triumph of RPG craft by being so focused? Focused on atmosphere, on character, on really tightly tuned combat? And how did the game make a story about something as heavy as erasure and mortality feel so engaging, so vibrant and worth exploring? Something to think about.